Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to lecture number 12 of irrigation engineering. In previous lecture number 10 and 11, we have discussed some basic concept, history, uses and types of dams. Okay. Also different types of forces or pressures which are acting on dam structures were discussed. Actually we have two types of forces. One is the destabilizing forces and the second one is the stabilizing forces. Okay, in the stabilizing forces, one we have the water pressure at the tail or downstream, and second one is the weight of the structure, okay, which is which is contributing to the stability of the structure. Okay, and second one we have the destabilizing forces like the water pressure at the upstream side, the uplift pressure, the wave pressure, earthquake pressure, silt pressure, wind and ice pressure and temperature stresses. These are contributing to the failure of the structure. So these are the destabilizing forces. Okay, now in this lecture we will discuss the modes of failure. Okay, that what are the possibility through which a dam can fail. For example, actually we have four types of possibilities. The overturning. Okay, for example, if we construct a barrier across a natural waterway, so we know that here a reservoir will made and it will exert some water pressure, some earthquake or hydrodynamic pressures will be there, wave pressure will be exerted on this structure, silt pressure will be acting on this structure, there will be uplift pressure. Okay, there will be wind pressure. So due to these destabilizing forces, the structure can be overturned. Okay, they can be rotated from one of the point at the base. Also the structure can be slide from we can say that it can be slide horizontally. So overturning, sliding, also compression can be caused due to the heavy weight of the structure on the foundation. Also the tension can be produced. Okay, so the overturning, sliding, compression or crushing and tension, these are the different modes of failure which can be occurred on the dam structure due to the application of the destabilizing forces. Okay, then we will discuss the stability analysis, mean how much we will ensure that the dam will not fail. What will be the factor of safety for different failure modes through which a dam can fail. Okay, mean how we will compare the stabilizing forces and the destabilizing forces, how we will quantify it and how we will get a result about the stability of the structure. So we have different steps which we have to follow for the stability analysis. Okay, and then we will have some numerical problems related to the failure modes of the structure or the effect of the forces which are acting on the dam structure. So this will be all about the lecture number 12. Okay, now modes of failure, stability requirements. So before this one, let's discuss some background or some combination of loads for the design purposes basically. Okay, so in previous lecture we have discussed the different types of forces which are acting on the dam structure. Now remember, see, for example, if these are the foundation and here we construct a dam structure. Okay, so now we know that there will be silt pressure, there will be water pressure, there will be earthquake pressure, there will be wave pressure, there will be wind pressure. Okay, there will be uplift pressure, there may be tailwater pressure. Okay, there will be weight of the structure. Okay, now these are the different forces which are acting on the structure. Now remember, all the forces acting on a dam do not act simultaneously. Mean all the forces are not acting at a time on this structure. There are various combination of loads which act simultaneously. Okay, mean at a time. For example, see, we can say that suppose when we have the maximum water pressure, okay, mean the maximum flood water pressure. Second, we have the ice pressure. Now see, ice pressure can be there in the winter season, and maximum water pressure or maximum flood pressure that will be there in summer or monsoon season. So we can say that maximum flood water pressure and ice pressure cannot be present simultaneously on the structure. Mean these two forces cannot act at a time on the structure. So generally we can say that all the forces will not act simultaneously. Mean there will be some combination of loads which will act on the dam structure. So design of the dam should be based on the most adverse combination of the probable load condition. Okay, see, we will classify, we will combine different loads and then we will find out its impact on the structure. So the combination which has adverse combination, the combination which has adverse impact on the structure, that will be considered in the design analysis. Okay. So see, according to USBR, United States Bureau of Reclamation, okay, we have a normal and extreme load condition. Mean they have classified the combination of the load. So the first one, we have the normal load combination. Mean the normal load combination, again the normal load combination has three categories. The normal, when the normal water surface is there in the reservoir, mean the water is up to the level of the normal water surface level, the normal water level. Okay, the normal water surface elevation, okay, plus if there is ice pressure, okay, plus if there is salt pressure, okay, and plus there is normal uplift pressure, okay, then this combination will be called as a normal load combination. Suppose at a time there is normal water surface elevation, there is ice pressure, there is salt pressure, and there is normal uplift, then this combination of load will be called normal load combination. Okay. Second category of normal load combination is, suppose there is normal water surface elevation, okay, there is one is the normal water surface elevation, second one we have the earthquake forces, okay, for example, and suppose there we have the salt pressure, okay, and suppose there is the normal uplift. So now that is another combination, that if the water level is up to the normal water surface elevation, there is earthquake forces, there is salt pressure, there is normal uplift. So again that will be a type of normal load combination. Okay. Third category of normal load combination is, suppose the water level is maximum water level. Okay, the maximum water surface elevation, mean the water is stored up to the maximum limit in the reservoir. Okay, and suppose there is salt pressure is acting, okay, and for example there is normal uplift. So see, maximum water surface elevation, salt pressure, normal uplift, that will be another category of normal load combination. So there are three categories of normal load combination. Okay, mean these different combinations will be considered and the analysis will be performed. Then the one which have adverse impact on the structure, then that combination will be selected, the design will be based on that most adverse combination of the forces on this dam structure. Okay, the second combination according to the USBR, that is the extreme load combination. Okay, extreme load combination, mean see, when the water is up to the maximum flood water elevation, for example if flood is occurred in the river, then the water stored in the reservoir will be up to the maximum flood water elevation. Okay, similarly there will be salt pressure. Okay, similarly if the water level in the reservoir is the maximum flood water level, then the uplift will be also extreme. So there will be extreme uplift. Okay, so see, the maximum flood water elevation, salt pressure, extreme uplift, that will be considered as an extreme load combination. But that is not necessary that the dam will fail in extreme load combination. Remember, there is also another category which is called the reservoir empty condition. Okay, mean reservoir empty condition, mean if the reservoir is completely empty, mean if there is no water in the reservoir. For example, the design is also to be checked for the reservoir empty condition. Okay, mean the condition is primarily, this condition is primarily important for testing stresses inside the dam and around opening provided in the dam of the in the body of the dam. Okay, see, if the reservoir is completely empty, then there will be only weight of the structure which will be acting downward. So again we can find out the stresses, the impact of the weight of the structure on the foundation. Okay, so see, that is not necessary that the dam will only fail at the extreme load condition. Okay, there is also possibility that some stresses will be produced at the reservoir empty condition which can fail the structure. Okay, yeah, we can say that this combination can also fail the structure. So for different load combination we will do the stability analysis, and the combination which have adverse impact on the structure, that will be considered in the design. Yeah, the design will be based on that adverse combination of loads. Okay, so this is the combination of loads according to USBR. Also one of the general combination, like see, suppose that is the foundation, this is the dam structure. So the combination of the loads which are acting on the dam structure, that is also classified in 6 or 7 combinations. For example, the first one, that is load A combination. Okay, या load combination A, या load category A. Okay, now see, that will be when, for example, the dam is constructed, the dam is completed, but there is no water in the reservoir. There is no water in the reservoir and there is no tailwater. So the combination of load at that time, that will be considered as a load combination. Okay, means suppose if there is no water in the reservoir or if there is no tailwater, so then there will be no water pressure, there will be no hydrodynamic pressures, there will be no wave pressure, there will be no silt pressure. Okay, but there will be the weight of the structure, and there may be wind pressure and temperature stresses. Okay, so that combination of load is called A load combination. Okay, then secondly we have the B load combination. Okay, in B load combination, that is also called the normal operating condition. Normal operating condition, when the water level is up to the we can say that when there is full reservoir elevation, mean when the water is up to the full level. Okay, and see, when there is no flood, when there is no rainfall, then the water which is coming in the river, that is called the normal dry weather flow. Normal dry weather flow. So if the water level in the reservoir is constant, then the water which is coming into the reservoir, that amount will be discharged into the downstream. Okay, so the amount of water at the tail, that will be the normal dry weather tailwater. Okay, so the B load combination is the full reservoir elevation plus the dry weather tailwater, okay, plus the normal uplift, okay, plus ice pressure if applicable, okay, plus silt pressure. Okay, so this combination of load will be called normal operating condition. Yeah, that will be called load combination B. Okay, mean full reservoir elevation, dry weather tailwater, normal uplift, ice pressure and silt pressure. Okay, then we have C load combination, which is also called the flood discharge condition. Flood discharge condition. So see, again, in this combination of load, the water level will be what? That will be the maximum flood surface elevation, mean water level will be up to the maximum flood level. Okay, and also there will be, we can say that, maximum tailwater. See, when there is flood in the river, then all the gates will be open and maximum amount of water will be discharged into the downstream. So there will be maximum tailwater. There will be maximum tailwater. Okay, so and also there will be some outlet pressure and there will be silt pressure. So the maximum flood surface elevation, maximum tailwater, outflow pressure, self pressure. That is called the C load combination. Okay, then we have the D load combination. Now remember, if earthquake is combined with the A load combination. What is A load combination? That is the construction condition. That is the dam constructed, but there is no water in the reservoir and no tailwater. Okay, mean reservoir empty condition. So when the earthquake is occurred, mean there will be possibility that suppose the dam is empty and earthquake is occurred. Okay, so then the A load combination plus earthquake, that is called the B load combination. Similarly, when the normal operating condition, mean the load condition B, for example, if that is combined into the earthquake, then it is called the E load combination. Okay, similarly, we have the F load combination. If the flood discharge condition is combined with the earthquake, if the flood discharge condition is combined with the earthquake, then it is called F load combination. Okay, so these are the different load combinations based on which we will have to do the stability analysis. Then the one combination which have the most adverse impact on the structure, that will be selected for the design purposes. Okay, now let's discuss that what are the basic modes of failure through which the stability of the structure will be affected, through which the structure will be the structure can be failed. So basically we are dealing with the concrete gravity dam. Also in the previous class we have discussed the different types of forces which are acting on the gravity dams. So here we will also mostly the failure modes will be mostly related with the gravity dam, which is resisting the destabilizing forces by its weight. Okay, so these are the different types of the failure modes. Mean the overturning. See, for example, if we have the foundation and here we construct a dam structure, so the water will be stored up to the normal level or maximum level or flood level. So then there will be water pressure and wave pressure, silt pressure, hydrodynamic pressure, okay, outflow pressure, weight of the structure. So the structure can be overturned. The structure can be rotated. That is called the overturning. Also, due to the impact of that destabilizing forces, the structure can be slide horizontally from its original position. That is called the sliding. Also, at some point at the base, at toe point, there can be some crushing will be occurred if the foundation compressive strength is less than the applied compressive stress. So compression or crushing can be occurred. Okay, also tension can be produced. See, when here the crushing is increased, then the structure at the heel point here tension can be created. So these are the main failure modes: overturning, sliding, crushing, and tension, which can be expected from the application of the destabilizing forces. Okay, let's discuss one by one. Okay, so the first one is the is overturning. So see, for example, again, that is the foundation, and here, for example, you have constructed the concrete any one gravity dam. So see, as we know that from the previous lecture, there will be some horizontal forces and there will be some vertical forces. Okay, suppose this is the combination, this is the resultant of vertical forces and this is the resultant of the horizontal forces. So there will be some resultant force. Okay, mean that is the resultant of the vertical and horizontal forces. Now, the overturning of the dam section will take place when the resultant force at any point in we can say that at any section cut the base of the dam downstream of the toe. Simply we can say that, for example, if this is the summation of the horizontal forces, this is the summation of the vertical forces, and that is the resultant force. Now, if the resultant act on the toe point, or if the resultant act to the downstream of the toe point, to the right of the toe point, then the dam will overturn. Okay, that is just a simple concept of the overturning, that if the resultant force act on the toe point, or if the resultant force act to the downstream from the toe point, then the structure will overturn. The overturning of the dam section will take place when the resultant force at any section cut the base of the dam either at the toe or to the downstream of the toe. Okay, so in that case the resultant moment at the toe point will become clockwise. Okay, mean that is also called the overturning moment. And when we have the resistive moment, see, we have the water pressure, we have the salt pressure, we have the hydrodynamic pressure, we have the wave pressure, which can produce the overturning moments. Okay, the overturning moments. And when we have the weight of the structure, which can produce the resistive moment in the opposite direction, there is also uplift pressure. Uplift pressure can also contribute into the overturning moment. And weight of the structure, that will produce the resistive moment. Yeah, that will produce the righting moment, which will resist the overturning moment. Okay, so these are two types of the moments which will be produced. Mean if the resultant cuts the base within the body, mean if the resultant cuts the base within the body, then there will be no overturning. Then there will be no overturning. Okay, simply here you can see that if the sum of the horizontal forces is this one and sum of the vertical forces is this one, and here you can see that the resultant lies to the downstream of the toe point, then the overturning moment will be greater than the righting moment, and the structure will overturn. Yeah, the structure will rotate from the toe point. Okay, yeah, see, mean the rising water pressure at the upstream side, it will cause some hydrostatic force which will tend the dam to slide horizontally and which will tend to overturn the dam about its downstream edge, about its downstream toe point. Okay, so the horizontal forces such as water force, wave force or salt pressure which act against the gravity dam, that will cause the overturning moments. And to resist this moment, the resisting moment will be generated by the self weight of the structure, which is also called the righting moment. Mean these are the resisting moment which seek to stabilize the footing generated by the self weight of the dam. Okay, mean which stabilizing the structure, which resisting the overturning. Okay, so that is called the righting moment. Yeah, that is called the resisting moment. So we will find out the factor of safety against the overturning, that the righting moment should be greater than the overturning moment, and that ratio, see, mean you can see that the righting moment divided by the overturning moment, that will be the factor of safety against the overturning, and that will be not less than 1.5. At least, remember, at least that will be not less than 1.5. Okay, see, factor of safety is equal to sum of the resisting moment which is produced by the self weight of the structure divided by sum of the overturning moments which is produced by the destabilizing forces, that is called the factor of safety. So see, we know that different types of forces are acting on the structure, so we will find out, and also we know its point of action, its direction, so we can find out the overturning moment and the resisting moment from the toe point. So put it here, you will get the factor of safety. So we will ensure that how much the structure will save against the overturning. Okay, see, if the resultant of all the forces acts on the dam at any of the section passes outside the toe, then the dam will rotate or the dam will overturn. Okay, the resisting moment, the righting moment which is produced by the self weight of the structure divided by the overturning moments, that is called the factor of safety, and its values will be from 2 to 3. Okay, now here you can see that suppose that is the foundation, its base and that is the dam base having width B. Okay, suppose that is the water which is stored in the reservoir, so obviously it will act some pressure. So now when suppose that is the sum of the horizontal forces and that is sum of the vertical forces, for example the resultant lies to the downstream of the toe point, so now here you can see that the structure will overturn. See, that will overturn from the downstream edge. Okay, yeah, from the toe point, see, the dam will rotate, that is called the overturning. Okay, so that is one of the failure mode. since we know the magnitude and direction of each and every force, okay, which we have discussed previously in the previous lecture. So their moments about the toe can easily be founded, and also the moments from the weight of the structure can be founded. Then the factor of safety against the overturning will be calculated, and that should not be less than 1.5 in extreme condition. That will be from 2 to 3, but must be not less than 1.5. okay. Now the second failure mode, the stability requirement, that is the sliding. See, suppose that is the foundation, and here for example we have constructed the dam structure, so there will be joint between the foundation and the dam structure, mean at the base. Now again, due to the impact of the horizontal forces, wave pressure, hydrodynamic pressure, water pressure, salt pressure, okay, due to these forces the structure can be slide horizontally from its original position. Here you can see that the solid line that is representing the original position, and this dashed line that is representing the shifted position of the dam. So when the impact of the horizontal forces is more than the stabilizing forces, then the structure can be slide at the base, mean whole structure is slided from its original position horizontally. That is one case. Second is, we know that mostly the structure is constructed layer wise, okay, mean one layer is constructed, when it achieves some proper strength, then another layer is constructed over it, then another layer is constructed, then another layer constructed. So here you can see that we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 layers. So here you can see we have 4 joints, 1, 2 and 3. okay. Now see, for example, if the impact of the horizontal forces is more on this section, then you can say that this portion, this layer can be slided over this portion. Okay, so a dam will fail in sliding at its base or at any other level if the horizontal forces which is causing this sliding, if it is more than the resistance available to it at that level. See, mean there will be there is a joint between the base of the dam and the foundation, so it will offer some resistance to the applied forces. But if the resultant, if the action of this destabilizing forces is more than the resistance between the two surfaces, then the structure will slide. Similarly, here we have 2 layers, so there is joint between the 2 layers, that is horizontal joint, so there will be some resistance available. But if the impact of the destabilizing force is greater than the resistance available at this joint, then this section will slide over this one. So this type of failure mode is called the sliding. Okay, so a dam will fail in sliding at its base or at any other level if the horizontal forces causing the sliding are more than the resistance available to it at that level. And remember, the resistance against the sliding may be due to the friction between the joints. That will may be due to the friction alone, or also due to the friction and the shear strength of the joint. Remember, see, if we have a joint, so then there will be some shear strength and there will be some friction between the two surfaces. For example, if you are applying some force on this portion and you are trying to move this portion over this layer, so there will be some friction between the two surfaces. So the friction and the shear strength, these two are the resistance against the sliding. So if this resistance is less than the horizontal forces, then the structure will fail against the sliding. Okay, so the shear strength developed at the base if the benched foundations are provided, such type benched foundation is provided, and at other joint if the joints are carefully laid so that a good bond develops. Okay, mean the shear strength and the friction will be dependent between the bonds of the layer, between the bond of the joint. So shear strength also comes into play because of the interlocking of stone in the masonry dam. If you are constructing the masonry dam, then we have the interlocking joint. So again, then there will be some contribution of the shear strength to the sliding, against the sliding. Sorry. Okay. So see, if the shear strength is not taken into account, Okay, first we are actually finding out the sliding factor. So the sliding factor is equal to sum of the horizontal forces divided by sum of the vertical forces. Okay, mean all forces which are acting horizontally, that is sum of the horizontal forces, and when we have sum of the vertical forces. So if this ratio is greater than 1, it means that there will be sliding failure. Okay, mean that is the sliding factor, mean there will be the chances of the sliding. Okay, so then it depends on the friction between the two surfaces. Yeah, then it is depend on the friction of the joint. So if the shear strength is not taken into account, then the factor of safety, that will be only depend on the friction. Mean if the shear strength is not taken into account, suppose if that is neglected, then the factor of safety is called the the factor of safety against the sliding. Remember, when only the friction is considered as a resistance to the sliding. Okay, mean if the shear strength is not taken into account, then the factor of safety is called the factor of safety against the sliding, and that is equal to what? Mu summation of vertical forces divided by summation of horizontal forces. Okay, where mu, that is the coefficient of friction, and its value is from 0.65 to 0.75. Okay, see, from this then we can obtain the idea that the how much the structure will safe against the sliding if the coefficient of friction between the surfaces is mu, and that is the sum of the vertical forces, and that is the sum of the horizontal forces. Okay, so the factor of safety against the sliding will be the ratio of actual coefficient of static friction, that is the coefficient of static friction on the horizontal joint, to the sliding friction. Okay, so this will be then. And see, when the shear strength is taken into account, okay, mean if the shear strength is considered, then the factor of safety is called the shear friction factor. Okay, mean if the sliding is resisted by both friction and shear strength, then that factor of safety is called the shear friction factor, and it is equal to mu sum of vertical forces divided by sum of horizontal forces, okay, plus BC. Okay, where B is the we can say that is the width of the joint. Okay, mean actually that is the area. Remember, that is the area, but area is equal to what? We are taking unit length. Okay, so B multiplied by 1. Okay, mean 1 unit, 1 meter, for example, length, and suppose that is the width, so this will be area. Okay, so here actually we are taking all things we are dealing with the forces or pressure that are determined in term of unit length, so the area will be equal to B, and C, that is the shear strength of the joint. Okay, so if the joint is between the rocks, then the we can say that the shear strength will be equal to, that is from 1300 to 4500 kilonewton per square meter. Okay, and per concrete it is from 650 to 1300 kilonewton per square meter. Okay, so these are the shear strength, means shear strength of the joint, shear strength of the joint. If the joint is rock or if the joint is from the concrete, so that will be the shear strength, and this is the, we can say that the base of the joint, the width of the joint. Okay, if it is at the base, so then it will be considered as at the base width, and if it is at any level, then you can take the width of the joint. So then the factor of safety will be calculated. The sliding will be resisted by both the friction and the shear strength. Okay, so we will have to check the structure against the sliding. Okay, see, sliding factor, that is equal to sum of horizontal forces and sum of the vertical forces. Remember, do not confuse with this negative sign, negative uplift, mean that is actually V is all the vertical forces acting downward, minus U is the uplift force which is acting upward. So directly if you generally take it sum of V, so obviously the uplift pressure will be subtracted from the downward pressure. Okay, so only generally also you can take it just simply sigma V. Okay, but here you can say that is the downward forces and that is the uplift forces, upward forces. Okay, so that will be subtracted so that you get the summation of the vertical forces. I mean, algebraically you have to sum all of these forces. Okay, so when only the friction is considered and we can say that the shear strength is not considered, if it is avoided, then that will be the factor of safety against the sliding. I mean, here you can see only the friction will be involved, and when the CPAR low gravity dam, the factor of safety should not be less than 1. Remember, it must be greater than 1. Okay, and the coefficient of friction is from 0.65 to 0.75. And also we have discussed that if the shear strength is also considered in the production of resistance against the sliding, then the factor of safety will be called the shear friction factor, and it will be equal to mu sum of the vertical forces divided by sum of the horizontal forces, BQ, where B is the width of the joint and Q is the shear strength of the concrete. Okay, here you can see that, for example, and that is the foundation, that is the width between the base of the structure and the foundation. Suppose the water is stored in the reservoir up to this limit, so it will act some horizontal forces. Okay, now if these horizontal forces are greater than the vertical forces, then you see the structure will slide. The structure will move from its original position. Okay, means horizontally it is moving, that is the sliding. Okay, here you can see that at the base, at the junction point, okay, the structure is sliding. So we have to check the stability of the structure against the overturning, that how much is the overturning moment, how much is the righting moment. So then you will get the factor of safety against the overturning, and similarly we have to check the factor of safety against the sliding, that how much the structure will save against the sliding. Okay. Third one, the compression, the most important one. Okay, which can cause the crushing of the structure at a specific point. Okay, so see, when the maximum compressive stress occur at the toe, and for safety this should not be greater than the allowable compressive stress of the foundation material, otherwise failure will occur. Okay, mean the maximum compressive stress occur at the toe point. Remember from the equation you will get the idea that the maximum forces or the maximum compression occur at the toe point. Now see, suppose due to the application of the wave pressure, hydrodynamic pressure, hydrostatic pressure, silt pressure, okay, wind pressure, for example, it can produce the overturning which we have discussed. There will be also weight of this structure, there will be uplift pressure, there will be tailwater pressure. So due to these overturning moments, actually due to the resultant force, simply if that is the horizontal forces, these are the vertical forces, this is the resultant. So generally we can say that if the resultant lies to the downstream, then the structure will fail directly to the overturning. Then there will be no chance for the crushing or compression. The structure will directly fail against the overturning. But if the resultant lies to the left of the toe, mean if the resultant lies at any point of the base, then here there will be some compression stress is produced. Now see, if the maximum compressive stress which is produced from the resultant force, if that is greater than the allowable compressive stress of the material, mean the material from which the foundation is constructed or from which the base of the structure is constructed, if its allowable compressive stress, if that is less than the applied compressive stress by the resultant force, then the structure will crush at that point. That is called the compression, that is called the crushing. Remember, okay, again, if the resultant lies to the downstream of the toe point, then the structure will directly fail against the overturning, then there will be no chances for the crushing or compression. But if the structure is safe against the overturning and sliding, so then we know that the resultant will act to the left of the toe point. So if the resultant is acting, suppose here, so it will produce some compression, it will apply some compressive forces on that section, on that point. Now if the allowable compressive stress of that point is less than the applied compressive stress, then the structure will fail at that point. Okay, yeah, the structure will crush. A dam may fail by the failure of its material. See, the compressive stress if exceed the allowable stress, then the dam material may get crushed. Okay, the dam will be crushed at that point. This is one of the main failover modes against which we have to do the stability analysis. Okay, now in order to calculate the normal stresses, to calculate the normal stress contribution at the base, that what will be the stress contribution, the stress distribution at the base or at any section. Okay, see, let H is the sum of the horizontal forces, and suppose V is the sum of the vertical forces, and for example R is the resultant of these vertical and horizontal forces. Remember, if resultant lies to the downstream, then the structure will directly fail against the overturning. Now compression and crushing and tension, that will be analyzed when the resultant lies to the left. So see, if H is the sum of the horizontal forces, V is the total vertical forces, and R is the resultant forces which is cutting the base, at this point. Now remember, see, the distance from the toe to the point of action of the resultant, that is represented by X bar. Okay, and suppose that is the midpoint of the base. Suppose that is the midpoint. So the distance from the midpoint to the point of application of resultant, that is called the eccentricity. Okay, mean the distance between the point of application of direct load and the centroid of the member, that is called eccentricity. So the distance from the toe point to the point of application, mean this distance, that is called X bar, and the distance from the midpoint to the point of action of the resultant force, that is called eccentricity. So see, this will be how much distance? That is B by 2. Okay, so eccentricity will be equal to B by 2 minus X bar. Remember, okay, that is eccentricity. So H is the total horizontal force, V is the total vertical force, R is the resultant force cutting the base at eccentricity from the center of the base of width B. Okay, the total width of the base is B. Now the normal stresses at any point on the base, the normal stresses at any point, means suppose that is the total base of the dam structure. So the normal stresses at any point will be equal to sum of the direct stresses plus the bending stresses. Okay, now the direct stresses at the base, that is equal to V divided by area, mean the total vertical force. Okay, the vertical force which is acting divided by area, but remember we are taking unit area, mean the area in term of unit length, so that will be equal to B multiplied by 1. Yeah, that will be equal to V divided by B. So these are the direct stresses. These are the direct stresses, mean V by B. Okay, see, V by area actually. So area is equal to mean width multiplied by length. So actually we are taking 1 unit length, so that will be B multiplied by 1. Okay, and the bending stresses is plus minus 6 times of V multiplied by eccentricity divided by B square. Mean there is no need of the derivation of these equation, but just you remember that these are the bending stresses. Okay, V is the sum of the vertical forces. See, first you will know about all the forces which are acting on the dam structure. So V is the total vertical force, E is the eccentricity, B is the width of the base. So these are the bending stresses. Bending stresses may be either positive or negative. Okay, so the total normal stresses is equal to V divided by B into 1 plus minus 6 E divided by B. Okay, these are what? These are the normal stresses which are acting. Okay, yeah, the normal stresses at any point on the base, that will be equal to V by B into 1 plus minus 6 E into B. Mean at this point, mean from this point to this point, at any point. Now see, the normal stresses at the heel point will be equal to V divided by B into 1 minus 6E into B, because that is these are the extreme points. Okay, see, so this will be the normal stresses at the heel point and the normal stresses at the toe point. Okay, at the downstream end point, at the downstream point which is in contact with the ground, that will be equal to V by B. Mean there the stresses will be, the normal stresses will be maximum, that will be 6E divided by B, and in between the heel and toe point the stresses will be in between these two. Okay, mean these are the stresses at the heel point and these are the stresses at the toe point. The positive sign will be used for calculating the normal stresses at the toe and the negative sign will be used for calculating the normal stresses at the heel point. So these two will be the stresses. Okay, now okay, these things we have discussed. Now see here, this is the stresses at the heel point and this is the stresses at the toe point. Okay, so the distribution will be like this one. Mean at the toe the normal stresses will be maximum and at the heel the stresses will be minimum, and the distribution will be like this one. This is called the normal stress distribution diagram at the base. Okay, see, that is the mid of the base, B by 2 from the toe. So from the mid point to the point of application of resultant, that is called the eccentricity. Okay, the resultant will be acting somewhere like this, and if the resultant is acting here, so then there will be directly overturning. Okay. Now the point is, see, the maximum stresses occur at the toe point. So now the material from which this section is constructed, the foundation material or the base material from which this portion is constructed, suppose the allowable compressive stress of that area is F. The allowable compressive stress of that area is F. Now the compressive stress produced at this point, that must be less than or equal to the allowable compressive stress of the material at that point. Okay, see, mean these two are the equation which are representing the normal stress distribution. Okay, so see, when the pressure at both toe and heel are compressive, so then these will be considered. Now the maximum compressive stress occur at the toe, and for safety this will not be greater than the allowable compressive stress. Okay, suppose F is the allowable compressive stress of the material of this area, so then the applied compressive stress should not be greater than the allowable compressive stress. Okay, and second point, see, when for example E is equal to B by 6, for example, the eccentricity, the distance of the resultant force from the centroid of the base, suppose this distance is equal to B by 6, then what will be the normal stresses at the toe point? What will be the normal stresses at the toe point? So just put here B by 6, so you will get what? 2V divided by B. Okay, so that will be the maximum stresses which will be produced at the heel point. Okay, and see, when the eccentricity is equal to B by 6, then the normal stresses at the heel point, just put here B by 6, so you will get what? 0. Okay, so then the normal stress distribution diagram will be like this one, that at the toe point the stresses will be maximum, at the heel point the stresses will be 0, and then this will be the normal stress distribution diagram. Okay, so the corresponding stresses at the heel in the circumstances will evidently be 0. Mean now that will be the maximum limit. See again another point, if that is the dam structure, if here we have the reservoir. Okay, so if the water level is suppose the normal water level, for example, that is the sum of the vertical forces, that is the sum of the horizontal forces, and suppose this is the resultant force. Now for example, if the water level at the reservoir is increased, then the resultant will shift, because the impact of the horizontal forces will be increased and the resultant will shift more towards the toe point. So a point will reach when the resultant act at this much distance from the centroid. So that will be the maximum water storage level beyond which you cannot store water. Why? Because when you store more water from that maximum water level, what will happen? E will increase from V by 6. Okay, is it clear? See again, suppose that is the foundation, here we have the structure, the obstruction, here we have the we can say that the reservoir. Okay, so for example, that is the sum of the horizontal forces, this is the sum of the vertical forces. Suppose that is the resultant of these two, which is acting at eccentricity from the centroid. Now if the water level is increased, then obviously the impact of the horizontal forces will be increased and the resultant will be shifted towards the toe point. So suppose if we increase the water level so that the resultant force, the distance of the resultant force from the center point is equal to B by 6, then there will be 0 compression and there will be maximum compression. Now remember, if beyond this level, furtherly suppose we increase the water level, then what will happen? Then eccentricity will increase B by 6, mean the resultant force will be shifted more towards the toe point. So the eccentricity will be increased, that will be greater than B by 6. And if eccentricity is greater than B by 6, so what will be the normal stresses at the heel point? That will become what? Negative, mean negative compression. And what is mean by negative compression? That is tension. And remember, tension is never allowed in the concreted structures. Okay, so the maximum limit, the maximum eccentricity will be B by 6, mean the eccentricity will never be greater than B by 6, because if eccentricity is greater than B by 6, then tension will be produced at the heel point. Okay, so the maximum, the highest water which can be stored in the reservoir, it will be such that the eccentricity is less than or equal to B by 6. And another one, suppose if furtherly you increase the water level, what will happen? The eccentricity will go, the resultant will go beyond the toe point, and the eccentricity will be greater than what? Then B by 2. If the resultant go beyond the toe point, so what will be the eccentricity? Mean the distance from the midpoint to the resultant, that will be greater than B by 2. So what will happen? Directly overturning will be occurred. So to avoid the tension in the heel point, to avoid the overturning, to avoid the impact of the compression, the eccentricity will be less than or equal to B by 6. Okay, so that is the eccentricity, okay, which we have discussed. Clear? Okay, mean the distance from the toe point to the point of action of the resultant, that is x bar. And remember, x bar is equal to sum of the moments divided by the sum of the vertical forces. And what is the sum of moment? Sum of moment is equal to sum of the overturning moment, sum of the resistive moment plus sum of the overturning moment. Mean the algebraic sum of the overturning moment and the resisting moment. They mean we have two types of moments, overturning moment and resistive moment. So its algebraic sum will be the sum of the moments divided by the sum of the vertical forces, that is x bar. Okay, and the distance from the centroid to the point of action of the resultant force, that is eccentricity. So see, eccentricity will be equal to B by 2 minus x bar. Okay, and that is this one. See, when the
E is greater than B by 6, then what will happen here? Negative compression will be generated, and then this will be the pressure distribution diagram, normal distribution diagram, normal stress distribution diagram. Okay, see, when E is less than B by 6, then there will be some compression in the heel and some compression in the toe. This will be the normal stress distribution diagram. And when E is equal to B by 6, then the compression at the heel will be 0 and at the toe will be maximum. Then this will be the distribution diagram. And if E is greater than B by 6, then there will be negative compression at the heel point, which is also called the tension. And remember, no tension should be permitted at any point of the dam under any circumstances for moderately high dams. And to ensure that no tension will be developed, then the eccentricity should be less than or equal to B by 6. So then there will be no tension produced in the dam structure. Okay, clear? So masonry and concrete gravity dam are usually designed in such a way that no tension is developed anywhere, because the material cannot withstand with the tensile stresses. So if it is subjected to such stresses, these material may cracks. Okay, cracks will be occur at this area. So E must be less than or equal to B by 6. So if the eccentricity is greater than B by 6, then there will be tensions, and see, no tension will be permitted in the dam structure. See, that is negative if eccentricity is greater than B by 6. So this will be not allowed. Okay, and see, these are the different types of the failover modes which we have discussed: the overturning, sliding, compression, and crushing. Okay, so when the impacts of the application of forces of the destabilizing forces is greater than the stabilizing force, then the structure will fail. And when the structure fail, then you know better that what will happen. Okay, some breaking will be occur of the structure. Yeah, there will be some sliding due to the overturning. We can say that some huge damage will be occur at the downstream area, because the huge amount of water will be accidentally or quickly that will be released. Okay, that will be discharged into downstream area. So these were the different types of the failover mode. So this was the first part of lecture number 12. In next part, the lecture is continued. In next part, we will discuss the steps of the stability analysis, and shortly we will discuss one or two numerical problems.